going. I didn't check the audio channels, but I also didn't change the settings, so I think we're good. Welcome. Bienvenido. Welcome to Fine Hour.
Hello.
Today we have our first special guest joining me, Laura, and below Michael. Our guest is Hannah, last name redacted.
We need a bullhorn.
Also known as Lil Peppers, also known as Lil Dorito.
And this is all news to me, as it is to maybe some other people, but you two go way back.
Yeah, we've been through the dark times, but per the conversation we were just having, I don't even know what the dark times were because there were so many of them. Which should we talk about? We've lived in 3 countries together in squalor.
United States.
Yes.
United States, in Cincinnati, Ohio, where neither of us are from, even remotely.
I haven't been to Ohio. They've got the spaghetti chili.
Yeah, exactly. That's Cincinnati specifically. We've lived in Morocco together. That one I talked about a little bit in a previous episode.
I feel like with all the references to Morocco, we have to do an episode from Morocco.
We can talk a little bit about it today. That was the most squalid. I don't know. Cincinnati and Morocco are at odds for most squalid living conditions, but we lived with between 4 to 5 men in Morocco, depending on if one of them was staying there or not. And it was disgusting.
In Cincinnati, we had less furniture, but in Morocco we had more cockroaches. So,
and 4 of the cockroaches were adult men. Yeah, in Cincinnati, I was going through some of my little episodes and I got really paranoid about sleeping on my bed, and I had this like 6-inch IKEA mattress that I would put in different locations in our apartment
floor bed.
And that became like a massive point of contention. Like Hannah would say, you can't keep sleeping outside of my bedroom door on floor bed, and I would say I have to.
Well, like, okay, I kind of have to like qualify that, because like when she says outside my bedroom door, she means up against my bedroom.
Yeah, like fire hazard floor bed.
I was going through some stuff.
Yeah. But it felt good to be near Hannah.
Well, I don't think I conceptualized it as such at the time, but in retrospect, it is similar to a dog bed on the floor next to a human bed.
She did try to sleep also on the fire escape, which was right outside my window.
Whoa. That sounds
I had to like
cool.
call her in, make her come down because it's
I had to be like physically removed from the fire escape, where I decided I was just gonna sit there until I like passed away of natural causes.
Wow.
Have you mentioned the cockroaches that we lived with in Cincinnati too? It's another theme, cockroaches, because we had 2 there, but they were big.
Oh my God.
Like,
no, it was 4, Hannah. It was 4. Okay, this is a great story. So
no, there weren't 4.
You can identify them by like their accessories. Like one has a little hat and one has a bow.
I might have told you it was 2 to make you less mad at me. So before I moved to Cincinnati, there was a gentleman in my past who developed a bit of an obsession with me and persisted in his efforts to win my affection. What's that?
I said I'm developing an obsession with you as well.
Well, this will perhaps give you some clues on just like some brainstorming on what to do. Yeah. So he persisted in trying to find innovative ways into my chaotic heart. And once he called me, he was living in Echo Park. I had been having sex with 2 of his friends, and I was living with my parents. And he called me and he was like, I need you to come over right now. I have something for you. And I was like, oh my God, is he gonna try to like propose to me? And I was like, what is it? And he was like, I can't tell you. You have to see when you get here. And I was like, I have to come like tonight. And he was like, yeah, come now. So I drove like an hour and a half in traffic to Echo Park, and I got there. And first he like wouldn't show me, and he was like being all like flirtatious. And he was a PA on some show, and he was like, I worked with the most beautiful girl ever today, but she wasn't as hot as you. And I was like, okay, what do you got from like, why'd you bring me here? And he goes into his kitchen and he gets, you know, those like gallon size bottles of water that have like the plastic handle and the screw top. There's one of those that's been like sliced in half at the middle with a razor. And there's like a piece of plastic wrap over it with a rubber band with holes poked in the plastic wrap. And in the jar are 4 Madagascar hissing cockroaches. And I was like, oh, what's this? And he was like, you said you loved bugs. And I was like, maybe I was like drunk and I like didn't want to kill a bug or something. I have no like other affinity for bugs. And he was like, I got him from a breeder in Compton. He was like, I had to drive all the way down there. And I was like, okay. And we ended up getting into a bit of a fight about something unrelated. And I was like, I'm fucking leaving. But then I like looked over the bugs and had like this like wellspring of maternal responsibility. And I was like, and so I just like took them with me and like put them on my car. And I put them on the front seat of my car. And I was driving back up the 101 back to my parents' house where I lived as an adult. And as I was driving, straight up, one of them like scuttled across the dashboard. Like it had gotten out. So I had to like pull over to the side of the freeway and like get them back into the jar. But they live like, okay, first off, I don't know the lifespan, but it's something long. It's longer than like a rodent. If you feed them meat, they get bigger. If you feed them vegetables, they stay the same size.
Veggies, please.
I got them like a little, Hannah, what would you call the little thing they lived in? Like a little terrarium?
It was a terrarium. Yeah, it was a small terrarium with a little handle, like a little carrying case. Yeah.
So then I had to move to Ohio. Hannah and I were both in Ohio for the sake of other people who didn't deserve our presence there. And I like couldn't just leave them. Sorry, there goes Tuba. I couldn't just leave them. So I like took them with me to Ohio. And then I spent like 3 months before Hannah got there living in the attic of these like frat guys. And I didn't feed the cockroaches the whole time, which is disgusting and horrible. I'm sorry. But they lived, they were just fine. They were just in there like, oh. So then I started feeding them again.
Did they really hiss?
Together. They hiss the hissing is actually the sound of they push the top of their exoskeleton against like another part of it, and it's like air being expressed from the side of their body. So they're like Hannah didn't like them.
I didn't know. I hate that guy because I had to live with those fucking cockroaches and they were sick. They were really gross. She used to like give them like an empty avocado peel and they would sit in it like a boat. It was disgusting.
Oh, it's cute if they weren't cockroaches.
They were sick. They were sick.
Imagine being able to sit in one of those with your friend.
I had like alternating like repulsion, but like a sense of responsibility, which is how I feel about a lot of people too. And that's how I get myself into these fixes.
And the way that it manifested is you didn't want them in your room, but you couldn't get them out of the apartment. So she put them in the fucking hallway that was like right in between our 2 rooms. And I swear I could hear them at night. I could hear them.
Like, they would like scuttle at night.
Like you could hear them like clicking around and scurrying in there. It was horrible. They were just, I really, I mean, cockroaches are disgusting. Why would you want really big ones? And in a terrarium. I don't think you had 4. You really had 4?
Yeah, I had definitely had 4.
You said 4. It was a really small box.
I don't know if I was treating them humanely. I still have a lot of guilt about the entire experience.
You think they're still alive?
I don't know. when we moved, I put them in, there was like a courtyard where everyone kept their trash. And I like opened the top and like set it sideways so they could leave if they wanted, and then just left the whole unit there when we moved. So
Wow.
I don't know if they're.
You did? I thought you gave them to someone.
No,
You're
I might
such
have told you that.
I think you told me that. So now, because I was back then, I probably would have like scolded you because I would have been afraid that you like
introduce some tropical, like, yeah, the ecosystem in
That's
Cincinnati.
how it all began.
Little did you know how fast climate change would accelerate and that it would all be irrelevant within even our lifetimes.
No, it's like I could get back so much time and energy if I had just known now
The world would end.
Yeah, how like all that time recycling.
Yeah. Oh my God. Just dutifully sorting our recycling, and it turns out they're burning all of it anyway.
That's bonkers. I knew that sometimes they get mixed, like it just all gets in the trash. I didn't know they're burning it.
So plastic recycling is so prohibitively expensive that it's very rarely actually done. So almost all plastic recycling is either put on a boat and sent to what country where they burn it?
I don't know.
Somewhere in Africa, I think, where they just burn it there, so they can't, so they're not burn, or they just burn it here. I guess glass you can recycle. So glass is one of the easier materials to recycle, but plastics you really can't. And I guess the whole plastic recycling campaign was funded by the oil companies in the 70s or 80s in order to like acclimate us to like plastic packaging.
And its disposability. Yeah. Out here, so like I live on the very end of Long Island right now, and like someone did, I don't even remember where I read about this or when, but at some point somebody followed the recycling trucks that come out here to pick up, like, because everyone sorts their shit, and they followed this truck, and all the recycling was just going, they were just putting it in different trucks, or sometimes even the same truck, and just just driving it to the same dump and dumping it all there. So it was just just to make us feel better.
I like how they've committed to like the theater of recycling though.
Yeah.
And they can't stop. They've locked themselves, like they can't stop now. It's like the moon landing. They have to just pretend that it happened at this point.
Yeah.
It's like if they want to go to the moon now, they have to somehow graft that onto the existing narrative. Same with if they want to start recycling.
My brother is quite an optimist, and when I bring up something like this, he'll like send me a web page where it's like this bacteria digests plastic and is going to save the world or something, and he's good at at doing that, whatever that is. Shout out to him. But
do you think it makes him able to just like exist more easily than people like us?
I mean, what does it do? I don't know how it works for him. I mean, I think he's able to see the gloom, but I don't know, maybe he just like saw that on the internet that day and was like, oh, this is great. But it is kind of a pattern for him. He does kind of like to adjust.
Yeah. Do you think when he reads it, he's like, yay?
Yeah. I, on the other hand, am like, you know what? Even when we all are like, even when our species is dead, then our planet will still be here until it's not. And that's okay. Like it's we're all transforming. That's my happy ending, is that it's, it's the end of the world and it's not.
I have no sentimental connection.
It's going to be Moroccan hissing cockroaches, just as far as the eye can see.
Probably the descendants of the ones who knew me. That's my legacy.
Like your children.
Yeah. Okay, so then we lived together in Morocco. There was an interval. Oh, well, so when we lived in Ohio, it was during the recession, and I had gotten a job at the Borders in the Dayton Mall. which was called the Miamisburg Centerville Mall. It was right outside of Dayton, because I had somehow gotten a job at a Borders in California, and they like transferred me, but they couldn't transfer me to one of the ones in Cincinnati because they were full, whatever the fuck that means. So I would commute an hour every day to Borders to work for like $9.75 an hour. And then during the holidays, they were hiring people to work at the calendar kiosk that goes inside the mall. That's like the satellite location. And that Hannah then got a job at the calendar kiosk inside the mall.
It was like, honestly, I was so jealous of her job at Borders. Like I was so envious. Like I had probably applied to like, I don't know how many Borders and Barnes and Nobles and never gotten a job there. And like, just, I spent all my time applying for jobs and never getting them. And so like, I had to have an in with Laura to get that like highly coveted position at the calendar kiosk.
And you got it.
Yeah.
And she wasn't allowed to sit down.
No.
Yeah, sometimes we would, I don't even know how they would get there, but sometimes someone would put a stool at the kiosk, and inevitably we would all start using it because you want to fucking sit down. And then like a manager would, not her, but one of the other like asshole managers would like come by and like see us. They would just like do these little pass-throughs to check on us in the mall, and then they would scream at us and we'd have the pool taken away.
That's it. Why would that even be?
You couldn't sit at Borders anywhere. None of the employees were ever allowed to sit. I don't know what the benefit of that was. We also had to do this thing called hand selling, which is like every month there would be some book that we had to hand sell. And the last one I remember before going out of business was The Lost City of Z. But you had to do it to every customer because anyone could be a mystery shopper. So someone could be buying like the Bible or whatever, and you could be like, oh, if you like the Bible, you might also like The Lost City of Z. And they could be like, oh, what's it about? And I'd like, you'd have to like look at the back and be like, oh, basically like the Bible stuff. It's really similar. Yeah, Borders was
funny. I worked at a cafe in a bookstore for a while, and at Barnes and Noble. I worked at the Starbucks. Yeah. Yeah.
What era?
What era?
Yeah.
When was that? That would have been mid 2000s.
So like the same time Hannah and I were working. When were we working there, Hannah? Like 2008, 2009?
No, it was 2011.
2011? It was that late?
I worked there because I graduated in 2010. So I worked there like, it was probably like spanned the holidays between 2010 and 11.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because we would have moved there in 2010. A lot can happen in 11 years.
Like your brain melts and you don't have a memory anymore.
Or you just acclimate to the like surreality of existence. So Hannah ended up back in another mall, which is why we brought her here today.
Yeah.
Hannah, so you ended up in another Rust Belt shopping mall.
Yeah, it's weird that I've in my adult life spent so much time in working in just like being in malls, because I actually I didn't know malls existed until I was like, I want to say 13 or 14. Like that wasn't a concept that I understood existed, because I'm just gonna mention this one time. My mother I guess she really hates them. And so we would periodically go to this mall that had like a department store that she liked as one of the anchors, but we never walked through into where the mall itself started. So I never knew it was there. And then one day when I was like well into middle school, I went there with someone else's family and we just kept walking through the department store. And I was like, where are we going? And then suddenly
it just opened, the vista opens up.
And it was amazing. I was just like I was in awe. I guess that's why maybe I've spent so much time in shopping malls.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they are really beautiful in a way. I mean, that's speaking as someone who grew up in the Valley and thus functionally grew up in the mall. That's like where we spent all our free time, from young childhood onward.
Yeah, they're like palaces.
They're beautiful palaces.
Big
So
indoor
in your
play.
most recent, most beautiful palace experience, how did you end up there? How many details can you give us about it?
I can give you a fair amount of details. I was there doing research for my when I was getting my master's, and I was studying like restaurant work in the mall in the front of house. So I got a job. I just kind of walked around and applied to places until someone hired me, and I worked at PF Chang's. I'll tell you that detail. Because
and the GM said that he thought you were, what did he say about you when you applied?
A great fit culturally.
No, that you really fit the PF Chang's culture or something like that.
I think, yeah. And like, I was really honored. And yeah, so I worked as a host there for like a few months while I was in grad school. And I mean, yeah, there's really not a lot more to say about why I was there than that, because it was pretty mundane. I just went to work.
Can you tell us what you discovered?
Yeah, I was really interested in like tipped restaurant work in general. I don't know. I think that the things that I discovered from an academic standpoint were pretty fucking boring. So
Got it.
but I don't know. I mean, I really liked people there. It was pretty fun. Like I really liked my coworkers, and I spent a lot of time with them, and way more time with them than like anyone I met through.
You're like grad school cohort who are horrible.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll bleep that out. I'll bleep that out. It's a misunderstanding. Okay, so situated across from Chang's, right? Was it directly across?
No, it wasn't across. So like you couldn't. All right. So why don't I just start it from?
Yeah, start us off.
So we used to spend like, it was just, I mean, the job was basically, and anyone who's worked as a host knows this, just like chaos, like moments of chaos punctuating like long periods of just absolute boredom, where there's just literally just nothing at all happening. And so we would just stand at the host stand and just stare out into the mall. And I came in one day and I was standing there with one of my coworkers, and these two guys walked by. Like, they were like petite, very tan, like I would say in their 50s, white hair combed back, identical, wearing identical matching suits, very well coiffed, very tailored. And they were just walking in complete lockstep, just like,
of course,
just I mean, it was the most Lynchian thing that I've ever experienced firsthand in my entire life. Like I thought I was hallucinating. And then I like turned to my coworker, and she's like, "Oh, you haven't seen the twins? They're here all the time." And then she explained to me, because I was kind of new at that point, that these guys were Eastern European architects who were architects.
Yeah, there were air quotes for those who weren't looking at the video at the moment.
Building play tower, I don't even know how you describe it.
It was like this like surveillance playpen.
Laura's cutting to the chase.
Yeah, well, there was like a ropes course already in the mall that was like up on the level above where our restaurant was. And so I think people thought at first it was part of that, but it was actually, they were building this bizarre funnel shaped like thing that was like that. The idea that children were going to go in it was so horrifying to me, because I would walk around this thing. I have pictures. I should have brought pictures that are just like, it's it looks like the most terrifying construction known to man. Like it looks
It's like piles of cinder blocks and just like some caution tape.
and all this like wiring just like hanging
It was
out.
like 3 stories tall too. It was like the Tower of Babel.
You saw these in pictures, or did you see it in person, Laura? No,
Oh, I saw the pictures. She saw it in person.
Yeah, so it was being built like down the hallway from where the restaurant was, and it took such a long time. And so this is in the context of a mall that was like, this mall is like, it is just it's a physical scam. Like the whole thing is just, the story of this mall is, I mean, it's like one of the largest shopping malls in New York State, if not the maybe it's like the second largest. It's gigantic, but it was supposed to be like a city in and of itself. It was supposed to cover like acres and acres and acres and have all of these different like areas that like replicated different parts of the world. Like there were going to be Tuscan villas and shit. I don't even like it, and the guy who was supposed to do this whole project raised so much money, and he got like, I don't know, he got like a lot of money from the state, I think. And the whole thing never happened. It was just like a fucking Ponzi scheme. But this tower, I mean, like it seemed it took them, I don't know when they finished it. It was during COVID, because I was watching it the whole time I was there, and it was like for months and months and months. And they have like a website that seems like it's straight out of 1997. Like it doesn't
like
seem
Borat.
like a real place. Yeah. And it looks so dangerous. And the whole point of it appears to be that you put your child in it, and then you can like monitor their activity from all these screens.
They have some tracking device attached to them.
Yeah.
As they go up this terrifying tower, you watch them on your cell phone.
And the website, like even before the tower actually opened, the only thing that was really on the website was there was some indication that there were going to be like rankings of the children, and you were going to be able to see it on the website.
All of this conceived by these uncanny, impossible twins. Yeah.
Yeah.
And story was like, has mutated since the press release. It was called Trombi's Tower. And the story about their background in the press release regarding the tower at this mall seemed to indicate that they had built several such towers, but we could find no evidence thereof, like anywhere on the internet.
In Europe, they were supposed to have been building them in Europe. Yeah.
But they just like, I don't think they had ever done one before. Like, I'm confident they had never done one before. Between your construction photos and the like sketchness of this narrative, and then they now have relocated. I'm not trying to get ahead of us in the story, but their backstory in subsequent press releases tied to subsequent projects they have has like mutated.
And their plan appears to be, they want to put one of these Trombi's towers in every mall in America. What is Trombi? I never even.
I know we didn't do very good research about this. I also realized like a minute before I clicked the Zoom link that I didn't look up how to pronounce their last name, and we're gonna get canceled by some acquaintance we didn't know was Romanian.
Yeah, I don't know how you pronounce it either. And
you each try and say it. I don't.
It's Rezvan, right?
No. What? No, that's one of their first names is Razvan. Razvan.
Okay, Razvan.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, and the other one's called Sebastian. Should we be saying their names on air?
Yeah, they have a robust internet presence. So
yeah.
And they're like committed to being indecipherable from each other. Like,
I'm gonna see if I can show a picture from their new. So they've now relocated to Atlanta, Georgia, and the people in whatever neighborhood Buckhead was the town. No, I guess it's outside of Atlanta. The people in the town to which they've relocated have started an Instagram chronicling like sightings of them.
No, wait, the people in the town started an Instagram, but they didn't like it because they want to have control over their public image. So they asked people to close down the Instagram, and then they started their own Instagram. And so the way it works now is that they have people send them pictures and videos.
I didn't know that.
They keep really tight control over there.
There they are.
Yeah, and it's not even like that picture doesn't even quite do them justice, because
I know.
all these shots where people like take a picture of them from like an office building or something way up high, and you'll see them down like in a plaza, and they're standing side by side like in front of a fountain, and they both have the same foot up on the fountain, and they're just frozen there in exactly the same pose side by side. It just
They
doesn't
move in absolute unison.
What?
Yeah, and apparently they came to the restaurant once when I wasn't there, and they ordered the same dish. They spoke really softly, like kind of together, and they sat side by side rather than across from one another.
I feel confident that they share a bed.
Yeah.
Because there was something in the article about like they do share a hotel room or something.
I think they live in a hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I don't know if people will see this, but it's like, no, I don't think so. Yeah. People are literally like Stephen Paddock level height away from them.
Wait, who is that? What's that?
It's distasteful. That was the Vegas shooter. But and they'll be walking in like perfect unison.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like every time I think about it, my head hurts because it doesn't seem like they should exist. Like it doesn't, it's right. Like an intrusion of something so dreamlike and so much something that I would have invented that it more than anything else I've experienced makes me doubt the reality that I am experiencing.
It's uncanny. Right. It's completely uncanny.
Did you see the bit? I think it was in something you sent me and Laura that like they said that like one of them will wear a white shirt in the morning and the other a blue shirt, and then they go home and change and switch so that like they're producing this. I mean, and they must intentionally be synchronous in all these. I mean, what is this?
I'm very curious as to whether or not we'll have to link this Instagram so people can weigh in, but like whether or not it's like a cultivated thing that, or just like an affect or an affectation that they have, or if they have some like sort of like deeply uncanny twinhood. And I don't want to ascribe any sort of like value judgment to these men who I don't know, but frankly, they're scary. And they remind me of something evil.
It doesn't, I mean, they live their lives this way. It feels like, I don't know, you almost want to look at it as like, oh, this is, I think an American understanding of it, we want to look at it and be like, oh, it's like performance art, because it doesn't, it just seems too much, it just seems like they're too much of it, but that's how they live their lives, I guess.
That's a nice reframe of it. It's less scary to me when you call them artists instead of,
well, they're ostensibly here on a visa, so somehow they either had money. I mean, they seem rich, right? But the Trombi Tower production values didn't exactly suggest wealth.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that they are getting, like, I don't know how exactly that was financed, but like that they would be able to do it so cheaply that it almost didn't look like it could possibly be like an intact structure. I mean, that is probably very purposeful, I would imagine. I've seen on that Instagram that they drive matching Land Rovers, I think.
Yes. Like, why do they have two?
They have one and they match and they drive them separately at the same time. So you'll see them parked together.
I think what's hard is it's like sometimes you meet someone who's creepy and you're like, oh, this person clearly is just a freelance pervert. Or sometimes you meet someone creepy and you're like, oh, this person probably works for the government. Or like any number of things, but you can't. What benefit could they derive from going around America to small towns, building like panopticon play centers and shopping malls, while like doing this bizarre like synchronized twinning thing.
It really does sound just like some nightmare we're having together, or some. I mean, it's terrifying a bit.
I've given up on trying to understand it like in a kind of in a rational way. I think this is part of like a realization that I'm coming to like later in my life now overall, but I've sort of like I feel like accepting them as like it's like the intrusion of that which I'm never going to be able to explain it. I don't think I mean, maybe there is like a whole excellent, maybe it's actually quite mundane. I don't know.
Hmm.
I kind of understand them as like, I don't know what they mean. And I think maybe they're going to come back in my life somehow, and it's going to become clear that they mean something, but
They're gonna run for president. Both of them together.
Well, I think that like in years past, Hannah, like you were always searching for some sort of like unifying theory to explain reality. And then I was always really dedicated to this, like, in retrospect, completely idiotic, like behaviorist, like human evolution, like being able to furnish an explanation for anything that transpires in reality. And I think both of us within maybe the past, 2 years or something, have like had this shift in perception whereby we have mutually come to understand that things like that intrude into our lives, and they are fundamentally impossible to metabolize. Like, you have to find a way to accept something that you can't use your human brain to like work through. And something as like mundane as these fucking weird twins triggers like that sense of the uncanny that is like kind of terrifying on an animal level, but at some point there's nothing you can do with the information.
Yeah, which makes it a little frustrating. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about like synchronicity lately, and I think that's the element that I'm sort of trying to bring myself to accept, these like, that which is meaningful but not causally related in any way. But that's why like I have this sense that there's going to be a meaning that comes back to me attached to these twins. I just don't know what it is yet. But I feel like they just feel like, I mean, I guess I've always been a little too preoccupied with like signs and portents, but it feels like it's going to be something. And I just don't know what yet.
And I also think that it connects to something we've talked about a lot, which is like the way our brains have been so fully acclimated from early childhood to just be these like propaganda reception machines that like there are parts of programming in our own minds that like limit our ability to perceive things that maybe we'll be able to like deprogram, or maybe we won't, But they are like, it's like very like Hannah and I were talking recently about how like in a contemporary like milieu, like intellectual milieu, if you try to talk about like the notion of evil existing, people act like you're like fucking psycho, like that's the purview of like weird Christians and just like schizophrenics, you know what I mean? But like for like thousands and thousands and thousands of years of human history before the Industrial Revolution, like evil was accepted in almost every society. Like every human culture had a notion of evil, and now if you talk about evil, you sound fucking bonkers. But like we're probably the ones who are wrong, given that we've undergone like a little over 100 years of just like complete brainwashing and propaganda, and now we're like, ew, like evil, okay, but I feel like that's applicable to a lot of things, particularly things like in the uncanny and the like horrifying or the absurd, stuff like that.
How would you, it makes me so curious about like how would we define evil? What is there something we do with evil? Is evil like part of the whole, like in kind of a yin yang way, where like we accept a certain degree of it, or is it defined as something that's like, to be transformed or exterminated, or it's like people do a lot of things with the word, so it's
I think that's a really good question. It's like talking about, and it's one that I can't say that I've made any like progress toward figuring out. Like, are we talking about like that there's this bigger thing that's beyond what we can comprehend, and this thing that we're calling evil is a part of it? Or are we talking about like intrusions from somewhere else that are, I really don't like, I'm not like theologically educated, so I don't have any like sense of, I just fly by the seat of my pants and try to figure this out from reading.
Well, I think like with Michael and my respective backgrounds, which have some like overlap in terms of like childhood education type stuff, in like certain types of Christianity, the notion of evil that was delivered to us was something that resided within the individual that you could commit, and it was like a behavioral regulation mechanism.
So like evil kind of occurs, or like does it act on us? Like,
well, it's like Satan tempting us to do things that are against the rules. Satan, the hottest person in Christian theology.
That's right.
He really is.
Little tail.
Yeah.
Never seen one of those before.
He's really campy and really mean, and he's just so hot.
He seems fun.
He seems super fun.
But he will cut you.
Yeah. And that's how he gets you too, by seeming. He's like, you want some apple?
Yes, I do. I love apples.
He's like, I got apples. You want some? And you're like, yeah, totally. And then
why
God
not?
is like, yeah, perfect, great. So fuck you forever. Get out of my garden. Yeah, and your kids are gonna kill each other. So hope you like the apple. And
yes.
Satan's like, whoops. Did I do that? Yeah, I wonder who we would have been if our brains had been allowed. Well, wait, actually, before I go into that line of inquiry, you work with people at times who are like schizophrenic, right? In your work, Michael.
Don't we all? But yes, I do.
Yes, in my place of employment, indeed. But like, something Hannah and I have also talked about is how like, so I've worked a lot with the homeless community, and I've also had a paranoid schizophrenic gentleman fall in love with me and decide he was going to marry me and buy a plane ticket to Los Angeles. But anyway, one thing is though that we've talked about is like that in the delusions that schizophrenic persons have in America, we've noticed that they all are of somewhat of a similar vein and are about often about like surveillance and being watched, and what are other things, Hannah, that are common?
Chips in the head, right? I mean, I'm going off like, no, I mean, Michael should answer this question, not me. It's just, like, what the fuck do I know?
Well, I know a guy who pulled all his teeth out because there was communication he thought was coming through his teeth. But like, so do you think that there is a link between the delusions that people have and like possible realities of the world in which they live?
Yeah, I do. so one way there is like that we are like all, I joke with my dad about these conspiracies of surveillance that, like we're staring into cameras right now. We have two cameras on our phones. We all willingly willingly being surveilled because it's too much fun. We don't have to have conspiracies about it, but so I mean, yeah, there's the influence of content around us. And then though there is like the why this delusion for this person, and I certainly don't always know that. And I'm not always good at being curious about it, but sometimes I can. And it for example, I was talking with someone, they were working with someone who their delusion was more or less that like, yeah, that like everyone was watching them all the time. And we were wondering, is it a way of being valued, like, and having a story that that they are worth sort of attending to, were they not attended to in some way? And I didn't see that person, and so I didn't get to find out more. But I mean, that's and I think a lot of people have different theories and curiosities about it, and we don't have answers. But sometimes, I've read case studies where people do find sort of a curative pathway through that kind of like just physical presence and understanding and working with them.
So have you ever like been working with like a schizophrenic patient and something they said, you're like, yeah, that sounds right?
Sure, I mean,
like moments of wisdom.
For sure. I will never forget when a patient at the VA, so they had worked, for the government in some capacity, and they were all about like the ways that the government is sort of, puppetry. And she looked at me and she said, "You're a puppet." And I was like, I kind of am. Like I'm learning how to treat you, and I'm going to go back and talk with the team about what we are going to decide to do. And I mean, I felt really, shook a little bit by that. At the same time, knowing that some of the things that were part of the content were clearly delusional about. I think that person didn't want to like, they thought their food was all poisoned and so on, so
can I ask you, like, when you sort of think across the many different people you've met who do experience delusions, do you see a lot of patterns, or do they tend to be highly idiosyncratic?
Good question. There are different patterns. Yeah, I mean, I think of the people, there's like, you might have heard of delusional parasitosis, where people think that there's stuff in their skin, and they'll kind of show you, and they're here it is, look, I just pulled it out of my skin, and I don't see anything. How does that happen? It doesn't seem like it's a contagion from like all seeing it on Reddit or something, and like, why does that happen? I don't know. So yeah, there are different patterns. I'm coming across a question too, though, of like similarly looking at beliefs about like good or evil or religions or whatever, that that there are patterns that more or less fit the world for me. And I don't know if that's true for you guys, where sometimes it's like there's something here that that we're reaching at, and then it kind of gets elaborated or fancified or something in a way that doesn't quite fit for me, or gets carried out in really extreme ways that most people would look at and go, oh yeah, that's not probably what like be kind to your neighbor.
Well, don't you think that that's just from like the 20th century co-opting of like all human knowledge and belief as a pattern of like social control, so it's like you'll take something.
That's big. What? Say that again.
like I mean, I think if you like look at the like project of the 20th century, it's like arguably one of mind control. I mean, I don't say that. I was joking to Jessa the other day that this show has just turned into a very competent medical doctor having to have a conversation with the mental patient he's not treating. But
which of us is which? I mean, what you were just saying reminds me of like Adam Phillips' shows, which are like very compelling.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, he makes these YouTubes that are just, I mean, about what you just said, that
Well, because it's
these
like when you
mind-
have like a government, like something like, I don't want to say MK Ultra because it's such a buzzword, and because I feel like our perception thereof is like this very limited set of experiments, but it's actually like a very small piece of a larger program of mind control across the 20th century. But like in those practices, the ruling class or the people enacting that type of mind control, they don't start with just something like whole cloth, you know, like they don't start by saying like, oh, like I'm struggling to even think of an example, but they take things that people already experience or are already interested in, or are already cultural practices in communities, and they capitalize on those and manipulate them and distort them and sell them back to people in a way that's like fundamentally corrupted and serves their interests. I'm trying to think of a good example of that.
So are you suggesting that then like there's like a kind of cultural like ripple effect where then like people who say like Michael might be meeting, who have like the skin delusion or whatever it is, like something has sort of seeped out from these projects? Or do you think that like each person would have had to have had some like direct contact with, I don't know, a specific like experiment or project?
I think more the former than the latter. Although I think that victims of those experiments are among us still in the population. But I think that our thought patterns have been like co-opted and homogenized such that you like can only have like a culture or a thought that exists for a very short time before, you know, the ruling class, for lack of a better term, becomes aware of it and gets its grubby little hands on it and turns it into something that can be sold back to you or used to manipulate you, you know?
Kind of like how conspiracy theories, that like trying to understand what a conspiracy theory is and like how we should sort of take them becomes incredibly difficult when you start to account for the extent to which they're manufactured, or like, you know, how it's there's like this constant interaction and shaping. So it's really hard to know, you know, what, you know, what's the origin, what's the intent behind this particular project, and why is it coming together in this, coalescing in this particular way.
That
Yeah, and I
suspicion.
think that like there will be like, you know, even stuff with like QAnon, for instance, which is like the details of which are so baffling, like how they landed on the specific details that they came up with, you know.
But if they got to Trombi's tower, they would just knit that right in, you
Oh
know?
my God, yeah. Trombi's tower could just be swallowed by QAnon in a matter of minutes. It would be perfectly integrated into that narrative. But it's like, and so then we also know, you know, more or less there is like either a cabal of pedophiles or everyone in the ruling class is a pedophile, one or the other. But those two stories start to like inform each other, you know, to a point where they become inextricable, and that's great for whoever wants us to never be able to understand anything, you know.
And I think we are lost. I mean, I feel lost all the time. And I would joke, but it was actually true when something happens, like when Afghanistan happened or something, like I need my podcast to come out so I can know what to think about this. Like I need someone who I trust or who's like not, or who's going to say the opposite of the news or something to help me have a thought about this, because it's so hard to even just contain the world. And at the same time, how could I have a theory about everything that's happening every day? You know, like it is too much for any of us to have like a competent theory of.
Yeah, I think I think that's where conspiracy theorists and independent researchers get a little caught up, because this is like, again, this is back to what I was saying before. It's kind of like I'm coming around to the idea that we might be going fundamentally awry when we try to build based on our sort of understanding of how, you know, cause and effect work, trying to build like this picture that makes sense and seems highly rational, where you've like, I think that might be exactly the moment where we go totally awry, because it might be the case that it's impossible to form those causal links, that they may just not exist. And that doesn't mean that the significance isn't there. It's just, it might be a different kind of a relationship.
Do you think that that's because it's so intricate that it's impenetrable, or do you think that it's because there's more chaos and less causality than we perceive?
I don't think it's necessarily chaos, and I also am not sure if intricacy would capture it either. Like I don't know, like I'm again like trying to become more comfortable with the idea that we might not be able to like rationally come to terms with it. There might be just things that are outside the purview of our understanding based on the way that our understanding works, right? So like that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean it's chaos, but it also doesn't mean like, his intricacy still implies a kind of like a web of connections that the way that we imagine that.
But there's mystery, and the mystery may be because of our perception or our human animal limitations.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, like, that was something I remember learning in college, was that like the human brain evolved to cope with information that is roughly takes place within our lifespan and is roughly our size. So like trying to think of anything really small or really big or that takes a really long time, our brain didn't evolve to deal with that type of information. So we run up against a quite literal physiological limitation whereby we can only start to understand things in terms of, I'm sorry about the bugle, in terms of analogy. But I mean, so at that point though, so say we are being like controlled in some capacity, and if you look at stuff, I mean, not to bring up 9/11, but you know, something like that, where there are these like cultural touchstones that don't make sense. And if you try to start tracing a linear path through them, you can find enough stuff to convince yourself that there is like a linear causal system of things that led to all of them. But then the deeper and deeper you go, the more unwieldy it gets, to the point where none of it makes sense anymore. So yeah. So if you'll bear with me, and I hate to introduce this, but I mean, that means that either A, it is happening at random, you know, and that there are interest groups and factions that enact different things, and history kind of just unfolds, and we're at the receiving end of whatever, you know, the product is of factional infighting among people we don't know in the ruling class, you know, forever. Or there's ancient astronauts.
Wait, how are those mutually exclusive or even separate theories? Isn't that
because the ancient astronaut theory ostensibly would mean that those life forms have the capacity for to hold more information than we do, and thus can design things that we simply have to experience, you know?
Which is kind of like, could God be another word for ancient astronauts? Or like, you know, there's some deus ex machina or something, you know, there's something that can explain it. And
but like a literal physical power, I guess. So like not God in like a universal consciousness or like Buddhist sense, but God in a Judeo-Christian sense of like a big man who sucks. And maybe
the livestock theory.
What's that?
You're pretty attached to livestock theory.
I know. I think I think we're all somebody's livestock. I just don't know who.
Oh, wow. That's gnarly. Is that like people who are like puppies or something?
No, like we are like, we're bred.
We're cultivated.
We're cultivated in some way to Maybe like we had more
By,
use
by,
in
by,
the
by
past.
like our folks?
No, by our overlords.
I see.
Hannah and I debated whether or not we should get into any of this on the show, because this is what we talk about alone, but usually don't let anyone else know that we talk about. This is our secret shame.
Fine line.
Let me yell at my dog really quick.
Okay.
Have you met Tuba?
Only in photos and Instagram and stuff. Have you?
She's a real
Yeah, Tuba tried to kill Hannah's dog, unfortunately, over a piece
No.
of cheese. It was
Over
sad.
cheese. She has her values.
Yeah,
Everyone's okay?
Hannah has a big dog too, and Tuba got up under him. He's really nice and gentle. Tuba's really squat and evil. She just like got up under him and was attacking him from below.
Really sad. All his hair stood up and he just kind of froze.
He just stood there. It was muy triste.
It didn't make him dislike her. He saw her again. He still wanted to hang out. He was like, look, I think there's been a misunderstanding.
Your cheese. I understand now. Jeez, I'm glad they were okay.
Did we already talk on this show about when I got really high and I was texting my friend from high school? I told you this on the show already, right? She's a veterinarian and we text
What
sometimes.
came of it? Jog my memory.
You told me this.
I have told a lot of people this, but I got really blazed and I was texting her and I was like, is there a chance that Tuba is intellectually disabled? And she was like, oh, well, there's a wide spectrum of intelligence in dogs, and I was like, no, I'm not saying it to be mean. I want to give her the best life possible if that's the case. Like, do you think she has a mental disability? And Lauren was like, it doesn't matter because she's a good dog. But she is possibly the stupidest dog I've ever met. And I've had smart dogs. Hannah's dog's really smart, and I know smart dogs.
He's really smart, but a week ago he ate a poisonous plant for
very emotional.
He's lived with my same houseplants for like his entire life, and he's never even he brushes up against them, but he just like got really angry at me one day and ate one of the houseplants. It was toxic and it like burned the inside of his mouth. I had to get on the phone with the animal poison control. I'm like describing his symptoms and the woman's like calming me down. I had to pay $75 just to talk to her. He's fine. He's totally fine. And
Did you have to give him milk or something?
I had to give him yeah, she told me to give him a dairy product and all that. I don't eat dairy, and so all I had on hand was some old sour cream that my brother left here. So
Thanks, bro.
that, and he seemed fine. But it was weird. I mean, like, yeah, he's smart, but like, how smart like can you really be if you just suddenly on a whim?
Yeah, there's a spectrum. I've had to accept that there's a spectrum of human intelligence, which I never wanted to accept before, because I was always like, everyone is equally smart. It's just different types of smart, And then I like,
why would you?
Hannah's not buying it. Not one bit.
I don't know. I still kind of believe it too. Like, I just can't internalize that anyone is that dumb. And I looked up like what knowledge is and all this shit, and like even taking a basic definition of like the ability to like take in and synthesize new information, I've gradually had to accept this year that there is a spectrum of human intelligence and that some people are smarter than others. And that's been like hard. It was a pretty like unpalatable thing for me. I hate it.
Trying to get here.
What?
Took you a long time to reach
I
that
know.
fairly self-evident
I've been digging my heels in for decades. Also, I have an issue that Hannah knows about with morbid curiosity, where I have a lot of morbid curiosity about humans, and I've in the past gotten myself into a lot of scrapes just because I want to know how something would pan out.
Ooh,
Like,
that's
X,
good.
Y, and Z with this person. And it's
Oh, that's
not
great.
self-destructive. It really is genuine curiosity.
Yeah, you're like a scientist. You're doing experiments.
You just can't
Getting
help
the
it.
data.
Like it's like a moth to a light bulb. And I have no morbid curiosity at all. Like as soon as I get a hint that there's anything macabre going on, I'm just like, goodbye.
Or like,
Trust.
I've always had a soft spot for very pathetic old men or middle-aged men.
Tell us who you think hottest man in film is. Hottest character in a movie.
Seymour in the movie adaptation of Ghost World.
Hannah, you know the answer to that. That's why you asked, huh?
I've thought that ever since I saw that movie in ninth grade.
Buscemi, right?
I think he's the hottest person on earth.
Just as that character, or like at all times, Steve Buscemi?
At all times, but that character takes it up.
Yeah.
To like a 10.
Yeah, you know, I never understood that particular preoccupation of hers ever. And then I learned that for some reason, when I learned that he was a firefighter, I was like, I get it.
Is this like a volunteer firefighter or something?
Yeah.
He was a firefighter for a long time.
He was at Ground Zero.
Well, that was because I think he had been a New York City firefighter. Someone's going to correct me on this, but like I think he had been a New York City firefighter for a long time, but then had stopped and his acting career took off. And then on 9/11, he like went back voluntarily.
That's part of the 9/11 sort of
the first
puzzle
responder.
pieces that all fit together.
I think he was like helping with the clearing.
No, I think he was just there to help. I don't think he fits into any part of. I don't think he was.
I watched The Lighthouse the other day, and there were this like homoerotic undertone. It's Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson are like stuck tending this lighthouse, and they're both like losing their minds and giving monologues. It's really good.
I remember when that came out. Doesn't Willem Dafoe have some like massive dick?
That's the story. They couldn't use his actual penis.
In Antichrist, they had to use a body double because his dick was too big.
Wow. Can you imagine? It's like a disability to his acting. They're like, well, we would hire you, but sorry.
Yeah. It sounds cumbersome, frankly.
Yes. How about you, Hannah? Characters or actors or?
What? Why are you giving me that grief?
I know we're about to talk about Monty Don.
Who's that?
Anna's celebrity crush is this horrible British gardener named Monty Don.
It sounds like a British pizza place or something.
Wait, have I ever showed you that?
When he used to be a jeweler, yes.
Oh yeah, I showed you that. There's like this. He does a lot of like British gardening shows, and like there's one. Didn't I like record it for you? There's like this moment where he's like driving this little mini tractor, and all these like old and like frumpy like British ladies are like standing there like drooling over him. I like recorded it and played it over and over again. It's so
the best thing about that show, the gardening show, is that the production company, like in American shows, whenever there's like a home makeover show, the show pays for the shit. So in this show that he's in, he like goes to people's houses and tells them how to fix their backyard, but then they just have to pay for it themselves. And sometimes they don't like have enough money for his idea, and he comes back and he's kind of like,
well, you tried your best.
You tried your best.
And then he just like it just doesn't happen. That's it. That's
yeah.
It's more. I like that better. I mean, I think it's and it's so boring when you just these American style like home improvement shows where they pay for their whole. I don't want to see that. I want to see someone like sitting there baffled after Monty Don's left, trying to figure out how they're gonna buy all those bricks.
Yeah, he just kind of swoops in. He's like this tall. I don't know how to describe him physically.
Hot.
He's not hot. Steve Buscemi is hot.
He What about you, Michael? You haven't shared.
Oh yeah, who's your celebrity crush?
Well, the Lighthouse guys. That's what I was going for. I thought it was, they were.
Celebrity
There was
crushes.
a weird chemistry.
What about
there.
when they're not together though? What about
They're
just like
not
a single
together, just
individual?
one individual.
Hmm.
Oh no, who would it be? I don't know, you all. I came up with two, and now I have to come up with a third. But I'm
Yeah.
drawing a blank. That's the problem. I'll know. Who is it? We're just. I don't
We
think
had these ready. Hannah and I were like,
I had
"We're
two.
ready to go."
The lighthouse. The lighthouse has to count for
You can't-
something.
No, you're picking. That's characters. They're pretending to be those people.
It has to
Michael.
transcend roles.
Transcend their role.
Yeah, it has to be role.
Rock Hudson.
Okay.
I don't know who that is. Do I?
He was like this old closeted
Was he in a
actor.
John Waters movie as a cameo?
I hope so. That would be incredible.
Or maybe
those are the kinds of names that John Waters gives characters.
I
Rock
know.
Hudson. Yeah.
No, that was. I mean, I was thinking of Tab Hunter. I'm gonna Google him really quick so I can see what he looks like. So like,
I don't know any movies. I don't watch.
I don't watch movies either.
I've seen like 0 movies. I don't know any movies.
Okay, yeah. I don't actually know anything about this person.
Yeah, I don't know much about him either. I was just, feet to the fire because I was just watching The Celluloid Closet the other day. It's like this, I guess it was a book, and then they made it to a movie, and it's about like Hollywood depictions of non-hetero people through the ages. And so yeah, he was in it. He was
in hetero roles.
Sometimes, but other times, one of the first examples they give is like I don't remember, it wasn't the Patsy or the Pansy or something, where playing for laughs, someone being extremely femme, whether it was explicit or just implied, and so on and so on.
Yeah. Like the dandy.
Yeah.
I think men were hotter before.
Something happened.
Yeah.
Like what happened. Yeah. This is another one of our theories.
Well, I actually think people too. I don't know. You'll like watch some shitty movie like rom-com from like the 30s, and it's just like, I don't know, like physically everyone just seems a lot more like developed or something. I don't really know what.
I think it's the microplastics and the xenoestrogens.
Could be. It really could be.
I think our morphology has changed in subtle ways that makes us just a little grosser, like across the board.
The gross index.
Yeah.
Yeah, the BPA and stuff. Yeah.
Hannah, do you feel comfortable talking about your grandfather's scrapbook?
Oh yeah, you can talk about it.
Can I talk about it?
Yeah, go ahead. Hannah's
grandpa, her paternal grandfather, how did you guys find it? Was it in your grandma's house?
So, like he was really into like photo albums and just like home movies and just like cataloged everything. So like there was this big album that was always on their shelf in their like TV room in their house, and no one in my family cares. Like no one looks at any of this stuff or like gives a shit. But I used to like always want to look at this album, but it seemed kind of off limits. And then like at some point I asked if I could, and I was given permission to. So I looked at it and like didn't quite get what it was. It had all these pictures of ladies in it. I was pretty young when I looked at it the first time. But then so fast forward to last summer. Was it last summer? Yeah. I was staying at my my grandmother by that point was living in an apartment in White Plains, New York, and I was staying there. I was the only one there for a couple of days, and I saw the album again. So I started going through it and realized that it was his fuck book. It was
it was every lady he'd banged, and on the last page was Hannah's grandma.
Well, she got a section, and so it like had her name with like, and he'd put a dried flower, and then like there were pictures only of her from that point forward. But like going,
that was the end
of the grass. It's It's kind
of
yeah.
He would write like little like innuendo-y statements, and it was like all these hot girls for like everywhere he went, he was getting laid, and he would put stuff like, and yeah, he would get a picture with each of them, write some crass thing underneath them, and then on the last page of the album was like Hannah's grandma's name in like a prettier font with a flower.
And the bell of the ball.
Yeah.
He was just having a good time. Like, and I think,
great time.
Yeah, I think they even met like on a cruise ship. Like, and I don't understand how he was just like, it's just years of pictures of him like on the beach. Like, I don't know, he's probably just on Long Island, but like, it's, yeah, just picking up ladies left and right.
Okay, so think of all the men in our respective lives who are looking to have sex with women specifically, and think of the turmoil they go through and the years they go through without getting laid, you know? So somehow your grandpa, who, you know, was not unattractive, but doesn't seem to have had any particular, like,
he wasn't that hot.
He wasn't like the hottest person. No, he's just like a guy.
He's pretty short, pretty short. He went bald when he was really young, like totally bald. Like he just was not like, hot. Yeah.
He got so much pussy, and it doesn't seem like out of step with his cohort in general. I honestly think that whole generation were fucking each other so much more than anyone now. Yeah. And they were just like, kind of enjoying it.
Why do we think that we're more sexually liberated than people were like 80 years ago?
I don't know, because I think that's a complete falsehood. I really don't think we are. I think we're profoundly sexually repressed, and like that people 100 years ago were like fucking everyone.
At least my grandpa was.
At least your grandpa was. N equals 1. And it's Hannah's grandpa. but it was a compelling data set.
Mm-hmm. What a story! What a book! What a photo album!
Big book.
Once, we have another friend, Hallie, who's the same age. It was born the same year as me and Hannah. And then we have our friend Jessa, who's younger than us, but Hallie and I once went online and tracked down pictures of everyone we'd ever hooked up with without any like identifying information. So just photos, and we sent them as one single file to Jessa, and the game was called Who Did That? And she had to try to pick which of them I had hooked up with and which Hallie had hooked up with. And she knew us both very, very well. And she knew our personal histories very well too, but she got like 57% right. It was really, she had very poor results. Yeah.
Did they all look similar?
The coin.
They all just looked.
What's the through line?
Lame. I don't know. Like gross, I guess. Just like it was like it was like early, like, it was like 2005.
Everyone was really skinny, wearing really tight
American
pants.
Apparel. It was like a lot of V-necks, and like
smoking way too much. Yeah.
At a party wearing a sailor hat from the costume store, and it was like the fake mustache era, and it was gross.
The fake mustache era?
Yeah.
Small mustache? What do you mean by fake mustache?
People would buy those sticker sheets that were fake mustaches.
I have literally no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, never mind.
It was the fake mustache era. Yeah,
it was like it was around the same time with the mustaches on the stick, and when people were getting mustache tattoos.
I do remember the mustache on a stick and the mustache tattoos.
It was that same era. People would bring sticker packs to parties of fake mustaches.
You just brought me back to the same planet with the stick mustache on a stick.
Wasn't that awful? What a horrible time to come of age.
What a thing that we all rallied around.
I didn't rally around it. I literally.
Yeah. To be fair, Hannah was non-participating.
That era was when I worked at the Starbucks, just to bring us full circle.
Whoa. And that's right around, that's when I was working at Borders in LA. The whole Ohio experience was a bit after that. But
what was the third country? Did we get all three? We got Ohio, Morocco, the country of Ohio, Morocco.
It was France. We met in France.
What?
Yeah. I went there. I don't even know. We like both signed up for the same.
We were at a school.
It was a school.
We met in line, I think, taking ID photos.
Yeah. And I wanted to talk to Hannah because she looked mean.
You wanted to talk to Hannah because she looked mean?
Yeah. A resting bitch face.
Yeah, she had extreme resting bitch face.
Just perpetual bitch face.
And perfect bangs. And I knew about a lightning bolt show that was happening that next day. And I was like, do you want to go to a lightning bolt show with me? And Hannah was like, okay.
Mara, first story.
It was like a festival. It was a weird music festival at this park. The festival was just like, who fucking cares? But the park was kind of cool.
Wasn't Dan Deacon playing or something?
Yeah, I think when we got there was like the tail end of Dan Deacon playing, and I think maybe like one of those other fucking awful bands.
It's someone in that crew, like the Animal Collective adjacent.
Yeah, get hype.
Yeah, there was like one where someone wears a mask, or
Deer Hunter, or Deer Hoof.
Deer Hoof.
Deer Hoof.
Oh, I love Deer Hoof. I'm just gonna go there.
Wait, is my internet slow or is your guys' internet slow?
Deer Hoof versus Evil. Deer Hoof versus Evil is one of their records. They believe in evil, at least for that.
Wait, I'm recording the Zoom and my internet's fucked up, and so it's gonna make you guys sound weird. God damn it.
That's okay. We'll sort it out.
Okay, you're back.
Evil. We touched on evil and it manifested.
Yes.
Hold on, I'm gonna yell at Josh to turn off his Wi-Fi.
I love the mute and yell.
I do that at work a lot. Yeah, and Hannah got black mold in her apartment, and my roommate went to another country to have sex with someone. She was
I didn't live in an apartment. I lived in this bizarre, like it had been a mental institution, I think.
Oh yeah.
Like and it still was part of it.
That checks out.
And then some of it had been converted into like cheap housing where people would live like dorm style housing.
It was gross.
It was really bad. It was like way out. I don't remember what arrondissement it was in, but it was like way out. And like, and then it had black mold. I got really sick from the black mold.
But it was good timing because my crazy roommate went to have sex with this guy who called her some gross nickname, like his
shoo.
No, it had to do with butt sex. It was like his little butt princess or something like that. I can't remember what it was.
When I think about this roommate of hers, butt sex is the only thing.
She talked about it so much, and she had so many accoutrements that
it's his middle name.
I can attest to that because I stayed in her room.
Yeah. I mean, and it was like just one step beyond a normal interest in butt sex. It was like the cornerstone of her sexual identity that she broadcasted to anyone.
Yeah, it was like beyond the cornerstone of her sexual identity. It was like
that's true.
Her entire identity.
It was kind of the cornerstone of her personality.
A total theory. It was like a conspiracy theory. It glued everything together.
Yeah, she was butt girl. I mean, that's the main thing I remember about her. Also that she was Polish and she would just eat meat, like without any other bits. Like she would come home drunk and she would just cook a piece of meat and just eat it without like a carb or anything. But Hannah lived there for a bit.
And we lived on baguettes. We basically, I think we both must have been really ill by the time we left.
We were very malnourished, and we both looked a bit malnourished. We were both really skinny, and I always had circles under my eyes.
I mean, I always do, but they were worse then. We lived on baguettes, little like jars of pesto that we would buy from the supermarket, like cheap rosé wine and raspberries. That's all we ate for like months. It was not months.
No, it was months. It was months. Yeah.
This taste is hard, even though it can be romantic. It's hard being lost.
We were broke.
Yeah, and broke and stupid. But we did go out one night and we met these 3 guys, and we've always thought of this as like a missed opportunity to become citizens of the European Union.
Oh, it was.
We went out and we met these 3 guys, and one of them was a helicopter pilot. One of them was
in the military. He was in the
yeah.
Fuck, marry, kill.
Well, I made out with the helicopter pilot guy, and he was gross. And then this other one took Hannah outside and was making her like dance in the street with him.
That seemed totally normal.
And that was the one that we didn't pay attention to. It was the one who seemed like a normal person. Yeah. But then I got all these texts from the helicopter guy that was like, they were in French, so my translation might be a bit overwrought, but it was essentially being like, it was ravishing to make your acquaintance. And I panicked. Like, it was so much that I wigged out, and I was like, I have to go back to America because my parents are sick. My family's very sick, and I'm gonna be leaving this afternoon.
Is that true?
All these texts. Oh, I was there for like, we went to Nice after that. Like, we were like, but sometimes we look back on that moment and we're like, when we're like griping about being American citizens, and it was like, look, life opened a door for us for a few hours and we neglected to step through it.
Yeah.
And now we're Americans forever.
We didn't take that it was a golden opportunity, and it was right there, and then we just
yeah.
I don't know, it probably would have sucked too. I mean, the helicopter pilot seemed like a sociopath. Like, he seemed like
he was no Steve Buscemi.
I know, but think about everything that's happened subsequently until I met Josh, and then would it have been, I don't know.
Do you remember that they were telling us about bears?
I spoke Frenchish. They didn't speak English, and
the guy I was talking to did speak English.
Maybe that's how you ended up paired with him.
Yeah, and he was telling me about, like, they were going on this trip together, I think to Canada, and they wanted to find bears. I don't know. There was some elaborate thing that they were going to do involving bears.
Yours was the long hair too.
Bears with long hairs.
Yeah. We've been on air. We've been recording for so long. We probably have to come to a conclusion. Yeah. Hannah, you should be our guest again.
Yeah, totally.
It's just anytime, guys. It's been a real pleasure.
Maybe we could do an Ancient Aliens episode, Ancient Astronauts.
Yeah, I would come talk to you guys about ancient astronauts if you don't think it's going to be too alienating.
I heard there's a show called Debunking Ancient Aliens that's actually pretty interesting, because it's like, even like it's that deep in it that people are trying to debunk it, not just like taking it for granted that like it's the show that it is. I might watch that. My friend Kyle recommended it.
We should reconvene. Kyle from Nashville?
Different one though. He shout out to Kyle. He said he enjoyed listening to an episode.
Oh, do we have any other shout outs? Hannah, would you like to give a shout out to anyone?
No.
Okay. I don't know if I have any. Do you have any, Michael? Other than Kyle from Nashville. He's not even from Nashville.
That's right.
I'll shout out Allison again, who continues to be a steadfast fan.
I'll shout out Allison too, because I met Allison one time and she was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Word.
Yeah. Hey, that's someone all three of us know. All right. Well, I'm gonna stop recording, so this is where the episode will end. But so say goodbye to everyone. You guys, you need to look more friendly when you say goodbye. Both of you.
I have a mansplanation before I say bye.
Okay.
About the conspiracies. I was just thinking about like that they help people feel like they know what's happening, and they can sometimes help people feel like they belong. And it's more about that than the content. That was just like gnawing. Peace.
Cleanliness and youth and an effervescent desire to enjoy life.
To me, sort of a vibe to me, sort of a vibe to me, sort of a vibe to me, sort of a vibe.